this is Kate from Generate Magic. So a lot of teachings discuss how to navigate reality when your desire still hasn't come to fruition. Or in other words, how to navigate that gap between where you are and where you want to be. But I'm going to discuss it from a slightly different angle. And as I get deeper and deeper into the novel that I'm working on, I've been thinking more and more about how we can view our lives through the lens of narrative. And doing so really kind of helps us to take on the role of the observer and to be immersed and engaged in our experience, but at the same time to view it with a level of detachment. And so one angle to look at it is from the angle of somebody who's reading a story or somebody who's watching a movie, right? So the reader or the viewer. And so again, you're engaged in what's happening, you're engaged in the story, you're relating and connecting to the character. And you even, if it's a very well written story, you're even experiencing the emotions alongside the character, right? You may find yourself laughing or crying or getting tense, especially if it's like an action genre or a suspense genre. But at the same time, you still kind of have that level of detachment, right? Because you know that because you're not identified with that character. And so I think the more we can view our own lives through that simultaneous immersion and engagement, but also detachment, the more peace we'll have in our lives, kind of as we're navigating through all these different experiences. And so I want to use a concrete example, just because I think it'll kind of help the point to sink in even deeper. And so in the novel that I'm currently working on, the main character, she is a young woman who's very unhappy with her life, and she was an Ivy League graduate, but now she's just kind of directionless, and she very much sees herself as a loser and a failure. She has no friends and just not in a good place. But then she undergoes a metamorphosis, much like in Alice in Wonderland, where Alice goes down the rabbit hole. But for her, it's more of a metaphorical rabbit hole. But it really kind of conveys this idea that life can change in an instant. And it's like she's transported into this new reality, a new identity, where all of a sudden she is part of this very cool social circle. She has all these friends, and she even meets this intriguing gentleman who also seems to take an interest in her. So things are really looking up for her. But it's not long before, like, as the story progresses, that things kind of take a downturn. And one of the friends turns out to be not exactly who she seems to be. And it turns out that this man is really just interested in hooking up with her. And being somebody who's very kind of naive, very new to relationships, and this is the first time where she was very deeply attracted to somebody and they actually reciprocated her feelings. And so for her, this is just devastating. And so my story definitely isn't unique in this sense in terms of narrative structures. Like, all narratives basically follow these kinds of ups and downs and highs and lows. But I just wanted to kind of give you like a specific example. And so as we're reading the story, we can kind of see how yes, even though we may experience these emotions with her, at the same time we know that the story's kind of headed in a certain direction, right? We know this is all leading somewhere. And the more you can see your own life in that same way, the more you can kind of see everything as stepping stones leading you to everything that you want, the more peace you'll feel kind of as you're navigating your experience. And really kind of every experience, like let's say you have a string of disastrous dates or disastrous job experiences, and all of that is helping to define more clearly whatever it is that you do want, and also just kind of helping you to understand yourself on a deeper level. And so seeing these experiences as stepping stones, seeing it all as the perfect unfolding or the perfect bridge of incidents, and also kind of seeing how everything, especially like a very upsetting experience, can be like a very powerful catalyst for change. And it's almost like this catalyst is launching into the reality that you do want, or the identity that you do want. And in the story, we see this very powerfully, where she undergoes all these very humiliating, very degrading experiences from her family, from so-called friends, from this man that she's been seeing. And there's also a moment where she looks in the mirror and she just does not like what she sees. And all of this kind of leads to all this built up frustration, and it leads her to say enough is enough. And that becomes kind of the deciding moment that really just kind of launches her in to the life that she does want. And so the more we can kind of see these upsetting experiences, whether somebody is doing something or saying something to you that's very upsetting, or something is happening to you, or you're just very unhappy with yourself, kind of seeing all of that as the catalyst to really compel you to stand in your chosen identity and in your chosen reality and saying, no, this is who I am now. And letting that really just kind of be, I almost kind of see it, yeah, like as a rocket, right? And it's launching you into that new reality. And so also it's gotten me, this whole experience has really kind of gotten me thinking about also seeing everything, not just through the lens of the writer and the reader, which is kind of a more, the reader and the viewer, which is kind of a more passive approach, right? But also kind of seeing it through the lens of the writer or the director of your life, which again is kind of playing the role of the observer, but it's also encouraging you to take a very, just a very authoritative, very empowering stance. And really saying, this is who I am. I'm the one that calls the shots, right? I'm the one that gets to tell this story. And I'm the one that gets to decide not only the next thing that's going to happen, but how I'm going to view this in the grand scheme of things, and how the story is going to end. And another way that I also kind of thought about it more from this creative perspective, as seeing all of these unwanted circumstances, as seeing it as the rough draft. And eventually, when you add in your edits and you improve upon the rough draft, right, you're eventually kind of overriding the unwanted, and you're writing in your preferred version, right, your preferred reality. But at the same time, the rough draft is also serving as that foundation, right? And again, it's kind of helping you to clarify what it is that you want. And so usually when you're, at least for me, and I think this is true for most writers, there's usually several stages of revision before you get your final draft. And so seeing, and the same thing with a director, right? Usually a director will do a lot of takes of a scene before they say, this is the final cut, or before they decide what the final cut is. And so seeing all these kind of unwanted circumstances that are happening to you, is seeing all of that as the rough draft, or seeing all of that as different takes that are helping you get closer and closer to defining what exactly it is that you do want, to getting to that final version. And so none of it is final until you say so, right? And so none of it is final until you decide to publish your book, or you decide to, whatever it is that directors do, right? They say, this is the final cut of their movie. And so it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing with you, right? So even, even let's say there's a specific person that you want to be with, and that person says, I don't want to be with you. And so you could say, no, this isn't the final cut. This isn't how the story ends. There's going to be more takes. There's going to be more revisions. And so you can see how all of this, right, is just really encouraging you to, again, kind of take a more detached approach, and also to take a more empowering approach. And kind of seeing life, they always kind of say, a lot of these spiritual teachers, right, kind of say, seeing life as happening through you and not to you. And but I think a lot of that, it can be kind of just like a nice saying, and we kind of nod our head and agree with it. But the more we kind of look at it through the lens of narrative, the more we can really kind of integrate all of these teachings into our lives in a more experiential way. And let me just look, I'm just going to look at my notes to make sure there wasn't anything else that I wanted to cover. So yeah, so another thing too, it's really kind of having this guiding vision. And so, like, as a writer, having this guiding vision is what helps me to navigate through the messy middle. And in this case, I'm using the term messy middle in a very literal sense. And I'm sure anybody that's ever written a story or a novel can relate to this. There's always kind of this, the in-between zone where things are a little bit messy. But as long as you kind of have that vision, and the vision, it can be, you know, knowing how the story is going to end, or just kind of having an overarching theme that kind of holds everything into place. And so that's kind of what's enchanting everything, and that's what's guiding you through the messy middle. And then on a more metaphorical level, like in our own lives, as we're navigating the so-called messy middle, all the chaos and the drama and the upsets, just kind of keeping that guiding vision in mind. And it always comes back to this saying, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I savor the nuances of the unfolding while keeping my eye on the prize. And so the prize is your guiding vision that guides you through all of this and kind of helps you to see the bigger picture. But at the same time, the unfolding of the story is also very beautiful, right? Both your life story and any story that you're reading. Like, as much as we just want to kind of think we want to just snap our fingers and everything is immediately resolved, in truth, if life actually worked that way, and definitely if stories work that way, it would be very boring. And so yeah, so I think it just kind of helps to put it all in perspective and seeing everything as part of this beautiful tapestry, and really just appreciating every moment in and of itself, and also appreciating every moment for how it contributes to this larger vision and contributes to this tapestry. And so I hope all of this makes sense. Please let me know any comments that you might have or any questions. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.